I never thought I'd be the kind of person telling this story. But here I am, standing on the other side of hell, breathing free air. And I need you to hear what happened to me. Because if God could reach down into the pit where I was drowning and pull me out, then nobody is beyond his reach. Nobody. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. If you enjoy this story, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Marcus Williams, and I'm 37 years old. I grew up on the east side of Detroit, Michigan, in a neighborhood where hope was something you heard about in church on Sundays, but never really saw on Monday mornings. My mama raised 3 kids by herself after my father walked out when I was 6. She worked double shifts at the automotive parts factory, and when she came home, exhausted and worn down, she'd still find the energy to make sure we had food on the table and clean clothes for school. I was the middle child. My older brother, Taro, joined the military right after high school and got out of Detroit as fast as he could. My little sister, Shanice, was the smart one. Always had her nose in a book. Always dreaming of college. And then there was me. I wasn't bad. I wasn't good. I was just there, floating through life without any real direction or purpose. When I was 14, I started hanging out with a group of older kids from the neighborhood. They seemed cool. They seemed like they had it together. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. That's when I first tried marijuana. It wasn't a big deal at first. Just something we did on weekends, hanging out behind the abandoned warehouse on Gratiot Avenue. But marijuana led to pills. Pills led to cocaine. And by the time I was 17 years old, I was using crack regularly. My mama knew something was wrong. She'd look at me with these eyes full of pain and confusion, asking me questions I refused to answer. We fought constantly. I'd steal money from her purse to buy drugs. I'd come home at 3 in the morning, high out of my mind, and she'd be sitting in the living room waiting for me, tears streaming down her face. I can still see her face in those moments, and it breaks my heart even now. But back then, I was too deep in my addiction to care about anyone else's pain. The drugs had become my god, and I would sacrifice anything and anyone to worship at that altar. I dropped out of high school 3 months before graduation. My mama begged me to finish, told me I was throwing my life away. But I didn't listen. I thought I knew everything. I thought I was invincible. The truth is, I was dying, slowly and painfully, and I was too blind to see it. For the next 20 years, my life was a revolving door of chaos, destruction, and emptiness. I worked odd jobs here and there, but I could never keep anything steady because the drugs always came first. I'd get hired at a warehouse or a construction site, show up for a few weeks, then disappear when the craving got too strong. I burned every bridge I ever built. I got into relationships with women who were just as broken as I was. We'd feed each other's addictions, enable each other's worst behaviors, and then blame each other when everything fell apart. I've got 2 kids out there, a son and a daughter, who grew up barely knowing their father because I was too consumed with getting high to be present in their lives. That's a weight I carry every single day, a regret that sits heavy in my chest and reminds me of all the years I wasted. The lowest point came when I was 33 years old. My mama had passed away 2 years earlier from a heart attack. And I didn't even make it to her funeral because I was in jail for possession. By the time I got out, she was already in the ground, and I never got to say goodbye. That guilt mixed with my addiction created a darkness inside me that was suffocating. I lost my apartment because I couldn't pay rent. All my money went to drugs. I started living on the streets, bouncing between homeless shelters and sleeping under bridges in the freezing Detroit winters. I'd wake up in the morning not knowing where I was or how I got there. I was robbed multiple times. I saw people die on those streets. I came close to dying myself more times than I can count. There was this one night, in the middle of January, when the temperature dropped below zero. I was huddled in a doorway on Woodward Avenue, wrapped in a filthy blanket that barely kept out the cold. My body was shaking uncontrollably, and I could feel my fingers and toes going numb. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how I die. Alone. Cold. Forgotten. And honestly, in that moment, I didn't even care. I was so tired of fighting. So tired of living. That death felt like relief. But I didn't die that night. A police officer found me and took me to a shelter run by a local church. I'd been to shelters before, but this one was different. The people there didn't just give you a bed and a meal and send you on your way. They actually cared. They looked you in the eye. They asked your name and remembered it. They treated you like a human being instead of a problem to be managed. There was this older man named Pastor David who ran the shelter. He was in his 60s, with gray hair and kind eyes that seemed to see right through all the walls I'd built around myself. He'd sit with me in the cafeteria, drinking coffee and talking about life. He never preached at me, never judged me, never made me feel ashamed. He just listened. One day, after I'd been at the shelter for about a month, Pastor David asked me a question that changed everything. He said, "Marcus, what do you want your life to look like 5 years from now?" And I couldn't answer him. For the first time in my adult life, I had to confront the fact that I had no dreams, no goals, no vision for my future. All I had was the next high. That question haunted me. It kept me up at night. It forced me to take a long, hard look at myself and admit that I was not living. I was merely surviving. And barely at that. I was existing in a state of perpetual desperation, chasing something that would never satisfy me, running from pain that would never leave me alone. Pastor David invited me to attend a recovery program the church offered. It was a faith-based program that combined counseling, group therapy, and Bible study. I was skeptical. I'd never been particularly religious, and I didn't see how praying and reading ancient texts was going to cure my addiction. But I also knew that everything else I'd tried had failed, so I figured I had nothing to lose. The program was intense. We met 3 times a week for group sessions where we'd share our stories, talk about our struggles, and hold each other accountable. We studied passages from the Bible that dealt with suffering, redemption, and transformation. We prayed together, something I hadn't done since I was a little kid sitting next to my mom in church. At first, I went through the motions. I showed up because it was required if I wanted to stay at the shelter, but my heart wasn't in it. I'd listened to other people share their testimonies about how God had delivered them from addiction, and I'd think, good for you, but that's not going to work for me. My addiction was too strong, my past too dark, my heart too broken. If you're finding hope in this story, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps us reach more people who are struggling. But something started to shift inside me. It was subtle at first, like a tiny crack in a dam that's been holding back an ocean of pain. We were studying the Gospel of John, and we came across a verse that said, "So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed." And for some reason, that verse hit me like a freight train. I started crying right there in the group, sobbing uncontrollably, and I couldn't even explain why. Pastor David pulled me aside after the session and just held me while I cried. He didn't try to fix me or give me answers. He just let me feel what I was feeling. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. I felt seen. I felt known. I felt loved. That was the beginning of my spiritual awakening. I started reading the Bible on my own. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I started praying. Really praying. Pouring my heart out to God and asking Him to help me because I couldn't help myself. I confessed every ugly thing I'd ever done. Every person I'd hurt. Every lie I'd told. I laid it all out before God and said, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore. If you're real, if you care, please help me." And God answered, not with a booming voice from heaven or a miraculous instant healing, but with a quiet, steady presence that began to fill the empty spaces inside me. The cravings didn't disappear overnight, but I found that when they came, I wasn't facing them alone anymore. I'd pray. I'd call someone from my recovery group. I'd read scripture. And I'd find the strength to get through another hour. Another day. The program taught me that addiction isn't just a physical problem. It's a spiritual problem. I'd been trying to fill a God-sized hole in my soul with drugs, and it was never going to work. No substance on earth could satisfy the deep longing for purpose, for love, for meaning that every human being carries inside them. Only God could fill that void. I learned about grace, the idea that God loves us not because of what we do or don't do, but simply because we're His children. That was revolutionary for me. My whole life, I'd believed that I had to earn love, that I had to prove my worth. And when I failed, over and over again, I internalized the message that I was worthless. But Grace said something different. Grace said, "You're broken. You're flawed. You've made a mess of your life. And I love you anyway." I also learned about community. Recovery is not a solo journey. I needed other people who understood what I was going through, who could encourage me when I was weak, who could celebrate with me when I had victories. The men in my recovery group became my brothers. We checked in on each other. We prayed for each other. We held each other accountable. When one of us was struggling, the rest of us rallied around him. That sense of belonging, of being part of something bigger than myself, was healing in ways I can't fully describe. After 6 months in the program, I moved out of the shelter and into a transitional housing facility run by the same church. I got a job working in the church community outreach center, helping to serve meals and provide resources to people experiencing homelessness. People just like I had been. It felt good to give back, to use my story to help others. I also started the difficult work of rebuilding relationships with my family. I reached out to my brother Terrell and my sister Shanice. both of whom had cut me out of their lives years earlier because of my addiction. I didn't blame them. I put them through hell. I apologized, not expecting forgiveness, but knowing that I needed to own my mistakes. Terrell was cautious at first. Had heard me promise to get clean before, and I'd broken those promises every time. But as months turned into a year, and I remained sober, he started to believe that this time was different. Shanice was more open. She'd been praying for me for years, and she said that seeing me in recovery was an answer to those prayers. Having my siblings back in my life, slowly rebuilding trust, was one of the greatest gifts of my recovery. The hardest part was facing my children. My son, Darnell, was 16, and my daughter, Jasmine, was 13. I'd been an absent father, and they had every right to be angry with me. I wrote them letters, apologizing and asking if they'd be willing to meet with me. Jasmine responded first. We met at a park in her neighborhood, and she just looked at me for a long time before saying, "I don't know if I can trust you." And I told her the truth. I said, "I understand. I haven't given you any reason to trust me, but I'm not the same person I was, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that to you." Darnell took longer to come around. He was older, and he remembered more of the pain I'd caused. But eventually, with patience and consistency, he agreed to see me. We started having weekly phone calls, then monthly visits. It's been slow, but we're building something. It's not perfect, and there's still a lot of healing that needs to happen. But there's hope now, and that's more than I had before. My recovery journey hasn't been easy. There have been moments when I wanted to give up, when the weight of my past felt too heavy to carry, when the temptation to use again was almost overwhelming. But every time I've faced those moments, I've turned to God, and He's given me the strength to keep going. I've learned that faith is not about never falling. It's about getting back up every time you fall, trusting that God is with you, guiding you, holding you. I've been sober now for 4 years. 4 years that have been full of growth, healing, and transformation. I'm not the same man who was huddled in that doorway on Woodward Avenue, waiting to die. God has given me a new life, a new identity, a new purpose. I'm now a peer support specialist, working full-time with people in addiction recovery. I lead a men's group at the church where I found my faith, sharing my story and walking alongside others who are fighting the same battle I fought. I've seen lives transformed, families restored, people set free from the chains of addiction through the power of God's love. And every time I witness that transformation, I'm reminded of what God did for me. People often ask me, "How did you do it? How did you break free from such a powerful addiction?" And I tell them the truth. I didn't do it. God did it. I surrendered my life to Him. I trusted His process. I leaned on His strength, and He carried me through. Every victory, every sober day, every restored relationship is a testament to His grace, not my willpower. I still attend recovery meetings every week. I still read my Bible every day. I still pray constantly, because I know that the moment I start relying on my own strength instead of God's, I'm in danger. Addiction is cunning, and it's always looking for an opportunity to creep back in. But as long as I stay connected to God and to my community, I'm safe. My mama used to tell me, when I was a little boy, that God had a plan for my life. I didn't believe her back then. I thought if God had a plan for me, it was to watch me suffer. But I understand now. God allowed me to walk through darkness so that I could bring light to others walking through that same darkness. He allowed me to be broken so that I could help put others back together. My pain has purpose. My story has power. And I will spend the rest of my days using both to point people to the God who saved me. If you are struggling with addiction right now, if you're living in that pit of despair, if you think there's no way out, I want you to hear me. There is hope. There is a God who loves you, who sees you, who wants to set you free. You don't have to clean yourself up before you come to Him. You don't have to get your life together first. Come as you are, broken and messy and desperate, and He will meet you right where you are. The road to recovery is hard. It requires honesty, humility, and a willingness to surrender control. It requires showing up every day, even when you don't feel like it, and trusting that God is working even when you can't see it. It requires community, accountability, and support. But it's worth it. Freedom is worth it. Life is worth it. I used to think that my addiction defined me, that I would always be nothing more than an addict, a failure, a disappointment. But God showed me a different truth. He showed me that I am His child, fearfully and wonderfully made, created with purpose and destiny. My addiction was something I struggled with, but it's not who I am. I am a man redeemed, a man restored, a man walking in the freedom that only Jesus Christ can provide. There are still hard days. There are still moments when I feel the weight of my past, when I grieve the years I lost, when I wish I could go back and make different choices. But I've learned to give those feelings to God, to trust that His redeeming even the worst parts of my story for His glory and for the good of others. I've also learned to forgive myself. That was one of the hardest parts of recovery. I carried so much shame, so much guilt, so much self-hatred for the things I'd done, the people I'd hurt. But God's grace taught me that I don't have to live in condemnation. Jesus paid the price for my sins, and am free. Free from shame, free from guilt, free from the burden of trying to earn my worth. I am enough because God says I'm enough. Before we wrap up, I want to encourage you to reach out if you're struggling. Don't suffer in silence. Don't let pride or fear keep you from getting help. There are people who care. There are programs that work. And there is a God who is ready and willing to walk with you through the darkest valley. Please, take that first step. Your life is worth fighting for. Looking back on my journey, I'm amazed at how far God has brought me. From the streets of Detroit to standing here today, sober and free, is nothing short of a miracle. I don't take a single day for granted. Every morning I wake up, I thank God for another chance, another opportunity to live the life He's called me to live. My relationship with my children is still growing. Darnell just started college, and he called me last week to tell me about his classes. It was a simple conversation, but it meant the world to me. Jasmine and I text almost every day now, and she has started opening up to me about her life, her dreams, her struggles. She told me recently that she's proud of me. And I cried when I read those words. Proud. My daughter is proud of me. That's something I never thought I'd hear. I've also been able to reconnect with some old friends who are still struggling with addiction. I share my story with them. I pray with them. I offer them resources and support. Some of them are ready to receive help, and some aren't. That's their journey, and I can't force it. But I can be a living testimony that change is possible. That freedom is real. That God is faithful. The church community has become my family. These are people who loved me when I was unlovable, who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, who stood by me through every stumble and setback. They've taught me what the body of Christ is supposed to look like. A group of imperfect people coming together to support, encourage, and lift each other up. I've learned so much in these 4 years of sobriety. I've learned that healing is not linear. There are ups and downs, good days and bad days. I've learned that vulnerability is strength, not weakness. Sharing my struggles with others has been one of the most powerful tools in my recovery. I've learned that gratitude is essential. When I focus on what I have instead of what I've lost, my perspective shifts, and I find joy even in the simple things. Most importantly, I've learned that God is real, and His love is transformative. I've experienced it firsthand. I felt His presence in my darkest moments. I've seen His hand at work in my life, opening doors, providing opportunities, healing wounds that I thought would never heal, has given me beauty for ashes, joy for mourning, a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Today, I live in a small apartment on the west side of Detroit. It's not much, but it's mine, and it's clean, and it's safe. I have food in my fridge, clothes in my closet, and peace in my heart. I have purpose in my work, connection in my relationships, and hope for my future. These are things I never thought I'd have again, and I don't take any of them for granted. I mentor 3 men right now who are in early recovery. We meet every week, and I walk with them through the same process I went through. I share my experience. I offer guidance, and I pray for them constantly, watching them grow, watching the light come back into their eyes, watching them discover their worth and their purpose, is one of the greatest joys of my life. There's a verse in the Bible that says God works all things together for good for those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. I believe that with my whole heart. God has taken the worst chapters of my story and has using them to write something beautiful, is using my pain to bring healing to others, is using my testimony to bring hope to the hopeless. And that makes every struggle, every tear, every hard day worth it. I still remember that night in January when I thought I was going to die in that doorway. And in a way, I did die. The old Marcus, the addict, the broken man with no hope. He died, and God raised up a new creation. That's the power of the gospel. That's the promise of redemption. We don't have to stay stuck in our past. We don't have to remain in bondage. Jesus came to set the captives free, and He did that for me. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. It's never too late. No matter how far you've fallen, no matter how many times you've failed, no matter how hopeless your situation seems, God can still reach you. He can still save you. He can still transform you. All you have to do is surrender. To open your heart and say, God, I need you. Help me. That's the prayer that changed my life. And it can change yours too. I'm living proof that miracles still happen. That chains can be broken. That lives can be transformed. I'm living proof that the power of God is real and that His love is greater than any addiction, any pain, any past. I'm living proof that there is life after addiction, and that life is good. 4 years ago, I was homeless, hopeless, and waiting to die. Today, I'm alive, I'm free, and I'm walking in purpose. That's not because I'm special or strong or deserving. It's because God is merciful, and He never gives up on His children. He didn't give up on me, and He won't give up on you. So, keep fighting, keep believing, keep reaching out for help, keep trusting that better days are ahead. Because they are. God has a plan for your life, a future full of hope. He wants to restore what's been stolen, to heal what's been broken, to give you a new beginning. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable with you. My prayer is that something I've shared has touched your heart, has given you hope, has inspired you to take that next step toward freedom. You are loved. You are valued. You are worth saving. Never forget that. God bless you. And may you experience the same freedom, the same transformation, the same abundant life that God has given me. It's available to everyone who calls on His name. Don't wait. Don't put it off. Today is the day of salvation. Today is the day your new life begins.